Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representative Candace Perucci and former Utah Democratic Party Chair Jeff Merchant. Great to have both of you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Big week as we head into the final week into the midterm election. So let's talk about the balance of power in the nation's capital. It's up for grabs. Representative, let's start with you. What's at risk as voters fill out their ballots?
So right now, we are seeing lots of polls coming out that are anticipating that the Republicans are going to be able to take back control of the U.S. House of Representatives, thank heavens. Now, how big of that take back, we'll have to see. There's an estimate from either 12 to 25 seats, upward of 30 seats. We've got 50 competitive seats right now in the U.S. Congress and the House, and about 33 of those are listed up as toss-up. So there's a lot riding on this election. But as I have been out knocking doors, talking to voters, the economy is #1, top of mind for people. In fact, I've had constituents stop me in the grocery store. We're talking about the price of groceries. There's definitely an increased amount of people who are shopping in the clearance section at the meat department at the grocery store. So really, people are trying to put Cheerios on the table for their kids, and the economy, inflation, and the failed policies of this administration are what are on the ballot. And I am hopeful and excited that we'll be able to take back the House as Republicans.
All right, Jeff, let's hear from you as voters make their decisions. This is really an important election because it sets the table for the next 2 years. What do you see at risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we see a lot of things that may create some serious problems for the government generally just moving forward. Certainly, I agree that the economy is probably the most important thing. I think that hopeful Democrats out there are going to try and do, and we have tried to do everything we can to focus on issues like Roe v. Wade and some of the other issues that really have some serious implications for privacy in this country. But, you know, the economy is a thing that affects people every single day, and the reality is that that's something that people are going to be voting for. Now, here's the interesting thing. In a normal election season, I think that you would see Republicans having much larger gains in a midterm election, especially with Joe Biden having been elected 2 years ago, and we're not seeing that. It probably is likely that the House is going to go to the Republicans. The Senate is completely up for grabs, and I think that the Democrats generally have a huge disadvantage in these big statewide races, just inherently based on the way that the system works, at least in our modern time. So I think the Democrats are still holding in there. I have a lot of faith that the Democrats will maintain control of the Senate, and I think that that will at least allow for some action moving forward. Otherwise, if Republicans sweep the Congress, we're going to see nothing happen for the next 2 years, and this is not a time for that to be going on.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit more, because in the past we've seen a president of one party be able to work with a Congress of another party. Representative, do you see that being able to happen at all if that is the case after this midterm?
Well, I will just quickly on the Senate race. We had the Pennsylvania debate this last week, which was incredibly painful for people to watch. I have no doubt the Republican candidate in that race will be able to close that gap. So yes, the Senate's up for grabs, but I definitely think there's a good chance that the Republicans will be able to move the needle there. In terms of us being able to work together, if you're saying we have a split House and Senate, President Biden, unfortunately, has not really given any indication to Republicans that he's willing to work across party lines. He ran as a middle-of-the-road Democrat, but since going into office has really shifted far to the left to make it really hard for Republicans to even be able to come to the table or even be invited to the table. I will say there are critical issues like immigration that I would hope that we're able to get some solutions moving forward, especially for the sake of our border states and for those people and humans and lives that are involved in this political back and forth that we have. Also, for the sake of families at the table, I would hope that the House with Republican control would be able to put a pause on terrible fiscal policies that continue to drive up inflation.
Jeff, your thoughts on that? If we are in this split situation, the American people still expect work to be done and to move forward. So what would be the keys in that situation?
Yeah. Look, I think one of the biggest problems that we have is that we don't have a Republican Party that's at least united within itself anymore. We've got really two Republican parties, one of which is made up of extremist Trump supporters, and one that's made up of people that want to see policy and want to see things change. The problem is that ever since the Hastert rule was passed, we don't live in an era where unless the majority party in the House all agree to something, that we're going to see anything happen. And so I really don't see much going on over the next 2 years with Congress and the White House working together. I don't think that that's because Joe Biden's not willing to do that. I think it's because we have a small subset of what I like to call the tyranny of the loud that are making one issue after another issue a culture war, and then we're not able to move forward. I think that, blaming Joe Biden for the economy, well, the economy has come up and gone down dozens of times over the course of every president's administration. The same thing with something like immigration. When I was 18 years old, we were trying to figure out immigration. I'm now 45, and we're still dealing with immigration. We have the opportunity to fix these problems, but the parties just aren't willing to come together and try and fix them in a way that most normal Americans would do.
Representative, interested in your thoughts on the point Jeff brings up within the Republican Party and that dynamic that's playing.
So I would disagree. I feel like this election, Republicans are uniting around the fact that the economy, inflation, and terrible policies of this administration are actually bringing Republicans together. Having the ability to take back the House is huge. The opportunity to potentially take back the Senate is also big. We have a race in Utah, obviously. The Senator Mike Lee running against Evan McMullin, that also is in the balance. That's really mobilizing Republican voters who have stayed home, but now are feeling the impact of these policies at home and are actually jumping out and voting on it. And to say that this president has zero control over the economy, it couldn't be farther from the truth. If we were to actually have some energy independence as a country and use our own resources, we'd be able to bring down these gas prices that are having crippling effects on people and the supply chain. The Inflation Reduction Act didn't work. It didn't reduce inflation as was promised. And then adding on student debt. I mean, it's almost as if it's just a domino effect that this administration, it's like a two-hit punch, and it's just not working for the American people and for families. So I feel like the Republican Party, we are unifying around the idea that we are the free market, limited government, conservative party that wants to empower families and honestly return more of their hard-earned money back into their pockets.
Jeff, your response when we talk about the president's energy policy and what he has done as far as getting bills passed like the Inflation Reduction Act.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, when we're talking about energy infrastructure, we had 4 years of Donald Trump. That infrastructure didn't entirely get built in the 4 years that he was there. I don't know if we can just say that this is all because Joe Biden has somehow managed to stop all energy production in this country. We still have plenty of energy production, but because of economic situations, it's not always beneficial for these people to go out and invest. Sure, there are probably ways and things that we could do to make that better. But the reality is that even if all the Democrats came to the table and said, let's do something, I still don't believe the Republicans are united enough to be able to do that. That's why we have a competitive Senate race in Utah, right? I mean, you've got Mike Lee, who makes up these kind of libertarian, kind of MAGA-like Republicans, and then you've got Evan McMullin, who's trying to build a coalition, right? So he's got moderate Republicans, he's got independents, he's got Democrats. I know the Republicans want to say that he's just a Democrat in sheep's clothing, but if you watched that debate a couple of weeks ago, they share a lot of the same views. It's really what the focus and point of government is that's the big difference. Mike Lee doesn't think that the federal government should really have much to do with anything. Evan McMullin believes that there's a place and role for the federal government in policy and in working in people's lives.
Representative, you've already touched base on the race for Senate here in the state of Utah. How do you see it as we sit at this point in time right now?
So I would disagree, not surprisingly, on the analysis of Evan McMullin. It's fascinating to me that Democrats, tout themselves as being principled individuals and upholding their party platform, but the Democratic Party in Utah did not nominate someone to represent their party to do a de facto support of Evan McMullin. So it's hard to sell a brand of a policy and then completely pull it back to increase an independent's odds. And I think there are huge issues with that. And I know even colleagues within the Democratic Party who are really frustrated by that. I think that in that debate, both of them displayed their true colors and were able to share their perspective on things. I think Senator Lee has shown, though, that he does work across the aisle, that he does work on issues. He's worked on criminal justice reform. He's worked on issues to help empower Utah families. The REINS Act is something he's been a huge advocate of. So to just throw out there that he hasn't done anything, he's not willing to work across the aisle, isn't true. Does he say no to things that maybe aren't popular? Yes, but as a mom, I understand the importance of saying no sometimes.
Okay, I have like 30 seconds left, Jeff. It'll go to you, but I'm really curious about this. You just mentioned yourself that policy-wise, you didn't see a lot of difference between Senator Lee and Evan McMullin. So why are Democrats getting behind him?
They're getting behind him because of things like January 6th, because of things like trying to overturn an election that was fairly won by a party that he didn't agree with. And I think that the reality is that Democrats, independents, and moderate Republicans see the value in our democratic and constitutional system.
Okay.
And despite the fact that Senator Lee likes to hold up a constitution every once in a while, it doesn't mean that he upholds the principles behind that.
All right, I'm sorry we have to end it at this point, but excellent conversation. Really appreciate both of you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.